Hi everyone, Marie Barclay here. I am so happy to introduce to you our super influential guest all the way from Trinidad, Tobago, and his name is Adrian Douen, and he comes from a regal family. He will confirm this as I speak with him, but he is just one of the most humble and gentle souls that I've had the opportunity to speak with, and it's just wonderful, the great works that he does. Not just with his renewable energy ventures, as well as being the CEO of his own company, but the processes that he will talk to us about today is just going to be absolutely mind-blowing. And I know that you are going to learn so much from it. And considering as well that he has actually done, or this company or the processes have done 11 of the 17 sustainable development goals that have been set by the United Nations is also overwhelming. So I know that whatever you do know about climate change and sustainability and the whole self-sufficiency methods, I know that you're going to learn so much about that today, and I'm absolutely delighted to have Adrian on the Why I'm Still Standing program. I know that you will enjoy it, and I look forward to hearing your feedback. Good morning, Adrian.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Great, thank you. How are you going?
Very good.
Good. But I know that you're very, very busy, so I thank you so much for, allowing your time or giving your time so freely to come on and share some valuable information.
Right.
And
no problem at all. Happy to share that.
Thank you. But I remember one of you're in the Caribbean, right?
Yes.
I just want to give the listeners a sense of exactly where you are.
I'm on the last tropical island on the Caribbean chain of islands, Trinidad and Tobago.
And you live in the Queen's Park area?
Yes, I live around the Queen's Park Savannah.
Okay.
Lady Chancellor Hill, to be exact.
Yes, very good. And from what you told me in previous conversations, Adrian, would you say that you come from a regal family?
Well, I would have to say yes, because
sounds it.
My dad's family were a group of wealthy French merchants that came to Trinidad in the late 1400s, just after Columbus supposedly discovered Trinidad and Tobago.
Wow.
His boats were sinking, the story is, and when he saw the three hills, he called it La Trinidad, meaning the Trinity.
Yes.
So we've come from that heritage.
Wow.
I actually have my family is so old here that there's also a folklore tale that my surname is famous for on my island.
Right.
Folklore tale.
A folklore tale. Okay.
Yes,
so are you going to share that, or is that a bit too long for?
Well, it just to make it in brief, my ancestor, when he left France, lost his wife on the sea. And he came to Trinidad as an estate owner, a very large estate in the capital at that time, a place called St. Joseph. And he had his way with all the ladies of his estate, the slaves, the natives, and etc. And total it up probably about 200, almost 300 children he fathered.
Wow.
Right? So he had a really great time having all these children. But unfortunately, in Trinidad at that time, there was also a very terrible disease that we now know as polio. So a lot of the children died within the first year and a half. And I guess that's why he continued to procreate after losing child after child. And of course, back in those days, there was not only the aristocratic families were buried in the church cemetery, because that was the only cemetery of the time. Everyone else would be buried on the estate lands, mostly on unmarked graves, because of course, unfortunately at that there was a huge slavery and slave trade still going on.
Mm.
And the story goes that the little Douen children who died before they were christened, if you misbehave, these little children would come into the city, which is St. Joseph itself, and take you into the forest, and you'd never be seen again.
Really? Goodness.
Yes, because the children would be protecting the other children from their parents and etc. So, any opportunity for the little Douen children to take them into the forest and never come back. Wow. So, of course, while I was born in Trinidad, I grew up most of my first 13 years in the UK, and I never knew this story. And my grandfather told me this story. And he actually carried me in the St. Joseph churchyard and looked at the births and deaths book of that era. And we counted close to almost 300 children that were born. So that story is very much true, as my name is true. So the children were named after that, and forever my surname
will remain.
Will remain in the history books of Trinidad and Tobago.
There you go. Wow, that's an incredible story. So you have a British father and a Trinidad mum.
No, it's actually the other way around.
Oh, other way around.
Trinidad father and a British mom.
Okay.
Yes, and my mom is British and German.
Okay, all right. Wow.
So my grandfather used to make the fun of us all the time. He said, "We are royal family, just like the British monarchy."
Yes, just like the British,
come from British
the Queen and the King.
Yes. Prince Philip and of course Elizabeth, right?
Okay.
So that's a little bit of our family. The French side, of course, were aristocrats, and they were wine barrel merchants for the Vatican. So we have a family seal, which is usually on my WhatsApp. I use that as my insignia for my WhatsApp
yes,
thing.
Okay. And do you also have one of those seals, like when you're writing letters and sending?
Yes. The candle seal. We have the same type of historical seal.
Wow.
That all letters were signed by and endorsed by.
Yeah, so that's incredible, Adrian. Well, I gathered that right after we spoke last time, and I've heard you before. I've listened to you in clubhouse rooms, and that's how we met each other. So I'm so grateful. Yeah, I'm just so grateful to have you on, because I know that you're going to share.
I'm so happy to be here with you, of course.
Wonderful information, well. Yes. And you're someone that I know that I can continue to learn from, Adrian. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. I also want to touch on, after we've spoken about the true circular economy, which is the title of our podcast, I'd like to speak a little bit more about your spiritual side, if that's okay with you. So
absolutely no problem.
All right, fantastic. Because you've been absolutely wonderful in terms of that, right? In just being a sort of a beacon, a light to me, but I'm sure that you are to many others as well. So
I do have a group of almost between WhatsApp and Instagram, just about 100 people that I send those prayer messages to every day.
Oh, Adrian. Right? Yeah. I guess what I'm learning from this is that's probably something that I should be doing too, right? Like on a daily.
I encourage people to actually try to post as many positive things on a daily basis as possible, because I think that God wants us, truly and honestly to spread that positivity. While there are bad things that are happening in the world, we will certainly never overcome them by dwelling into the negatives.
No, that's right.
Sometimes the simple words mean more than many
those
words.
Big, large, right? Those big, large ones. But even in the Bible, there is a mention in there about how to pray properly rather than rambling on like pagans. In Matthew, it actually shows you, or he tells you how to do the Lord's Prayer, and that's just a few words. So I've been really looking forward to this, Adrian. So what you've asked me to do, I have done, in terms of reading more about, the dirty side of energy and all that sort of thing. But I really, just before we get started on that, speaking more about the true circular economy, you mentioned a saying that you use quite often, which is goats cannot make sheep, which is, you've said, has been the foundation on your life. So can you talk a little bit more about that saying of yours?
Right. So it's actually a Caribbean saying that I learned.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever your foundation is in life, where you've come from is the difference between you and someone else. And everybody's different. So, from my foundation, I came from a very educated father and mother, and my entire family, has done, I think, very well in their little tenure here on the planet, because, we only have that short space of time that we have here. And we can't expect, unless we have changed our complete focus to God. And I follow a lot of what my father did. Strangely enough, him going to mass every single morning before going to work was a habit that was introduced to us. Also, my grandmother, who went to church every day, again, very early in the morning, starting off our day with God in front of us. So, the story is really very simple to understand, that if you come from one thing, you can't be something else.
Yes, I love that. Yep.
And despite all the things that may be said about you and how you do things and etc., you've come from that. And that coincides with the very old saying, you must know where you've come from in order to know where you are going.
Yes.
Right? So that's the very simple explanation for goats don't make sheep.
Oh, I love that. And I'm sure the listeners have learned a lot just from that, right? Just from that Caribbean saying.
Yes.
So you're married and you have a daughter and a son?
Yeah, I was married and I do have a daughter and a son.
Yep.
And my son's actually on the 2nd, day after tomorrow. Well, you're actually on the 1st already.
Yes, we are. So pinch and a punch.
Yes. He's born on the 2nd of February, 1995. So he's heading into the 26-year-old bracket.
Yes.
On the 2nd. And he is a doctor in the US. He's studying neurosurgery. Now he wants to do possibly cardiovascular. We'll see what happens. Children, you can make children, but you can't make their mind. Yes. But again, he has a good, strong foundation. And my beautiful daughter is just a couple months after him. And she's born in November, right? And she's studying renewable energy. Following in the footsteps of the future. Actually, she wanted to study medicine, and then she asked me what I thought about her doing medicine alongside her brother, and I said, it's really your choice. I can't decide for you. I can tell you renewable energy, very much so, is going to be the future. Electric cars, a lot of what we are doing now with our own circular economy, those things are going to be the future, because every day we have new crises that we are going to face in the future. There's several different things that collide with, not only because of the pandemic, but alongside the pandemic because of the change in where we need to be. The global climate situation is very, very critical. Very critical, more critical than people can believe.
That's right. And it's such it is such a hot topic, right? But not many people know too much about it. They just know the surface level, but they don't know the underlying situations that occur for it to get so bad, right? For the temperature, to increase from 1% to 1.5%, and for us to doing everything that we can to try and not get it to the 2%, right? Because that's a huge
well, it's
challenge.
devastating. it's devastating for small islands like ourselves and even continents like yours.
Yes.
Because Australia and England and all the countries that have water surrounding them, because the water is expected to rise if something is not done to keep the current temperature
now.
Yeah, as it is now, cease and desist. We're looking at 25-meter places.
And I remember you just cut off a little bit then, Adrian. So would you mind just repeating that last bit? Only because it was stagnant for a little bit.
Absolutely. So what I was saying, if we don't keep the temperature as it is right now, we are looking at a 25-meter height increase in the water level, which will swallow many
little
places.
Islands. Yeah, like my island, the places. Island that I was born in, Niue, which I've told you about in our previous convo.
I don't know if you know that the city of Jakarta is actually relocating because of global climate change. The water levels have already started to rise there, and they anticipate by 2025, 2030 that entire city will be underwater. What is existing now as land will be water. So we are facing a very serious
it is, isn't it?
time, you know, and people have got to really get serious.
They've got to stand up and take notice, don't they? Right now, Adrian. Not 10 weeks time or 10 years time.
No. They gotta deal with it now. And it's got to be politically driven, you know, at COP26. Many people, unfortunately, were from the government level were not supportive of the entire situation. And I apologize for the dogs.
I was just going to say, I can actually hear some dogs barking in the background. Is it possible to try and stop them? That's what I could hear. They must have heard me. That's fine.
They're slowing down. At least they're slowing down.
We'll just keep going. Yeah, but thank you so much for wanting to speak about this. It's because it is such an important topic, right? And I'm one of these people that only know things on a surface level. So to help educate myself as well as our listeners on the Why I'm Still Standing podcast will just be a tremendous thing. And I know that people will leave here really changing their mindset, right? Because I know that we also spoke about the education part of this too, which is so important. And I'd like you to speak more about that too, in terms of what your company is doing, not just from the
general business plan.
Yeah, not just from that part, you know, and global warming, but also teaching our children from a very, very young age and educating them moving forward. Okay.
It's part of our entire plan. Education for the youngest group to the oldest group is essential for this to actually work into the future.
You've called it GEL education, which is the
general enterprise leadership.
And that we're going right back to early childhood though, aren't we?
Yes. All right. And it addresses business, it addresses recycling, it addresses, you know, everything that a child needs to understand why we separating our plastics from our paper and our, you know, our metals, and it goes into a whole entire program that starts off from those early childhood children going into the secondary college level and then to the university level. You know,
prior to out into the workforce. Oh, that's amazing. I loved that. I loved when you mentioned that. So let's get started, because this is such a huge area. And I know that we only touched on it very, very briefly, but a lot of the information that you told me, Adrian, I had no idea about, right? I knew about a couple of things on a very minor scale, but not on the scale that you're working on. And I'll get you to speak more on this, but in order just to give our listeners a bit of an understanding, you know, to be able to take general waste, you know, whether it's domestic waste and hospital waste, and then turn that around to create, you know, food.
Electrical power.
Electrical power. But then in between that, but then after that, preparing crops for them and then preparing food and water. So it basically goes full circle,
right
right?
back around.
Yeah, right back around. So, but obviously we're going to be speaking more about that and how water comes into this as well.
Sure.
Which is such a wanted commodity. It's probably the most precious commodity, isn't it? So
yes, it's actually considered to be the new
gold. You were saying, yes.
It is supposedly the new gold. The future of the world lies in water. We have to drink it in order to survive.
Yeah.
And we need it in almost every process that we have, for our survival. Crops can't grow without water.
That's right.
So, the world is facing a very serious dilemma because of global climate change. And the biggest issues will be certainly water. Water not only for human consumption, but also for animals.
For cattle, agriculture.
And also food production for both humans and also animals. Because, cows still eat grass.
That's right.
The goats still eat grass. Horses still eat grass. So, there's a whole animal ecosystem that we also address in our technologies as well. We're not close-ended on that issue at all.
That's just absolutely mind-blowing. And we'll obviously also talk about the darker side of energy as well, right? We spoke briefly about how windmill farms are a bit of a...
Well, studies currently being shown that the large windmill farms are changing because of the currents of the world are changing due to global climate change. Now the windmills are actually causing pollination issues,
the interference with the process of it.
Yeah. And of course, the extremely high cost of maintaining these large scale windmills. You can never pay for them.
That's how costly they are.
Countries invest in these things, and yes, they do get some return because they have that power generation capability that they have the ability to do, but it's at also an additional cost. If your crops are not being pollinated properly and the wind conditions are changing for everything, including traveling bacteria like we have now, maybe little do we know how strong the present coronavirus is. Maybe we have already reached a stage where it's so airborne that all these measures that the world is trying to attempt to put in place and restrictions may not be worth it at all.
Anything. That's right.
Yeah. And of course, solar has its own issues with copper and the process of mining, and all these things are very difficult.
There's also, we spoke about the mining of copper in Chile and Argentina.
Yeah. If you saw those mines, if you had the chance to look at that Al Jazeera documentary on the dirty side of renewables, you would see the terrible devastation that the country faces when they're doing that level of mining. It goes into several, I would want to say almost 1,000 feet deep until the land is useless for any other purpose after, and here we are trying to save the planet by using the copper in a more productive way, but we're also destroying the planet because of that mining, and the mining companies unfortunately are ruthless with some of these things. It's very, very unfortunate. This is not like a coal mine that can poison the water and can do other things, the other problems of coal. And of course, the smoke emissions that China faces itself as the largest coal producer in the world. It's still very crazy. And at what cost is it to the whole world?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a terrible cost for the whole world.
It is, isn't it? But not just for that, but it destroys cultures and the biodiversity, right?
Yeah,
that whole process.
Native people of every country are pushed out of their natural habitat because of all these different kinds of mining issues and etc., to the point where not only the land is destroyed, but also cultures are destroyed. Because of all these different things that are taking place. And we're not blaming the mining companies alone. I mean, the governments are the ones that usually give these permissions. So it can't be single-handedly. It's not a single-sided story. Absolutely. There are two sides always to this story. And it's unfortunate that the world has been trying, but the of course, the conglomerates in the oil and gas industry will have their way for still a long time to come, because they still dominate.
Yeah, they still hold the power, don't they?
Yes, yes.
So to speak.
You know, some of us need the fuel to keep warm. Some of us need it to run our power supplies. You know, it's all these different things that are essential for modern day life.
Yeah, definitely.
The cell phones that we use, the everything coming from all these different processes, unfortunately, right?
Yeah, I hope this is beginning to give a bit of an insight to the listeners. You also spoke about India having 80% of their soil is extinct. So can you talk a bit more about that?
Sure. One of the critical things that it's not only actually in India.
Not just in India.
No. Certainly,
it was
even
just
the
an example,
United
I
States.
think you were saying, yeah.
Yeah. Even in the United States, India is a very serious situation, because almost 80% of their soil is presently heading into a state of extinction. You cannot grow anything anymore. Now, there's all sorts of new technologies. Guys are working on to develop some level of restoration of the soil, right? And, it's really, really important that we understand that process is also taking place. We have an investment also in some soil improvement technology that may even reach the aerospace level, right? Mr. Elon Musk may be buying some of our soil to take to Mars when he's going.
The next trip.
Yeah. So there's a lot of advancements going on. But the problem with the existing issue is that you have large spans of land that are not usable anymore. And you have hundreds of thousands of animals that need food. And our circular economy also deals specifically with those issues of animal food. And the basic animal food
is grass.
The basic, of course, yes, grass.
And so when you were talking about what you have access to has the ability to produce 10 tons of grass in 6 days, what do you mean about that?
Well, it's, of course, a very proprietary piece of technology that has been developed by some really fantastic people. We give that credit to them. Because they also, like us, saw the need of the issue of feeding the animals. We still want our beef, right?
Yeah.
We still want our sheep, our lambs. We still want all
goats.
Of these. Yes. So while the Indian community, of course, the cow is a sacred animal, it still has to be fed.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can't, unfortunately, you can't afford to feed them with the corn that needs to be used for human beings now. And that whole soil degradation issue is hitting all over the United States. It's really, really a serious problem.
Yeah.
And we are going to be in a situation shortly where even basic traditional crops like corn and sugarcane and all these other things will not be grown in a normal, natural environment.
Right.
Because of what's taking place. So emerging technologies like what I'm speaking about are going to be the future of where agriculture and animal husbandry and everything else needs to go. And even worse, what's taking place now with the pandemic and the global climate change conditions converging into each other. We found now that you are going to have shortages even within your own country.
Yeah.
So if you were a large supplier of corn, for example, you may not be able to export corn anymore. You'd have to keep it for yourself to feed your people, because on the other side of the coin, somebody who may be producing rice may not be able to produce as much rice as they did before.
Yeah.
So this back and forth issue of, can I sell you or do I sell you in front of feeding our own people? Of course, the private business people will always be for selling and making money. But, it's going to be at a stage soon where even the cost of getting that from point A to B is going to be
huge, isn't
extremely
it?
insane.
Yeah. I remember you saying that, the cost of shipping is currently 5 times higher, right? But it will get to the point where it will be 8 to 9 times higher.
Oh, yes.
So say, for instance, shipping a 20-foot container from, say, China to America is currently around $3,000. That's going to increase that has increased to 15K.
Oh no, it's not. Oh no, it's almost 19.
Really?
No, it's almost 19.
Golly.
And I can give you a little joke from one of my human resource director. She's presently living in Canada. So she moved and she decided she'd buy herself a new bed. So she went into one of the very large, I won't call their name, department stores, and she tried to order a bed 3 days ago. And when she got home, they called her back and said, I'm sorry, it's not available. And she'd have to come back in to look at the other beds. And by the time she got back there, 2 days later, she was told that almost 80% of the beds are now on a 6 months waiting list.
What? Oh my Lord, goodness.
Yes.
I've heard of waiting for a refrigerator for 2 months, but golly, wow. That's amazing, Adrian.
Yes, a bed. And it's going to get worse.
Yeah, it is. And like you said, also, there's going to be a decline in groceries, a decline in the production of food. So we really do
We're not trying to preach doom and gloom. We're simply trying to make people understand the need for self-sufficiency at home.
Definitely.
This is really the important
starting from the grassroots, really.
Yeah.
We will speak more about grass later and how that's also going to be included in this, the facilitation of this whole process. But the thing that stays in my mind is that you were saying that the rubbish that we produce, right, that the garbage that we have in our everyday household that I place down the chute of my apartment goes to this area. And in that area, how much methane and how much carbon dioxide is produced?
Well, the emissions
of that. The emissions of the CO2.
Two issues are, if you bury the garbage, it's when it's creating the methane. If you're burning the garbage, is when you're producing the CO2. Okay?
Yeah. And so
methane has some more devastating issues because it's now scientifically proven that it is causing mental health deformities in young children who live in those
close proximity,
those areas, and it also affects the mental health of the adults as well. So you find that people living in those what we would consider a depressed area are going to be more prone to violence and outbursts and etc. Not of their own doing, not because of their social disposition, but because of the poisoning that's taking place from the methane itself.
Yeah, from the methane
and the CO2 poisoning. Emissions combined.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
So, and this issue is also going into the fact that you're also utilizing a lot of land to continue to bury this.
Exactly.
This garbage.
It's almost as if people are not getting it. But I remember you also saying that it's so bad that it can actually go down 3 levels of generations.
Yeah, right? Yeah. It goes into the gene pool of the females, and unfortunately, it's passed down, and it can be passed down into several generations after.
Wow. I remember when I heard that from you originally, how dumbfounded I was.
Again, it's stuff that we are learning too. It's day-to-day education that's taking place, because as you tune into people, and more people get actively involved with trying to move the world in a new direction. People come forward and start sharing all sorts of new stuff that you've never heard about before. You know, So that's one of the really critical parts. And just imagine millions and millions of dollars are being spent right now to take garbage from one country
to
and
another.
place it somewhere else.
I know. How ridiculous, eh? It's
Okay.
just, yeah.
Not to put any blame on any particular group of people, but just to say that would you imagine all Ireland's garbage is shipped away to another European country?
To Russia or something? My gosh.
I don't want to call it.
No, you don't want
names. I don't want to call names, but I'm just saying that they are paying to remove their garbage from their country. All I can tell you is the guys who are buying the garbage, who are getting paid to remove the garbage, they are not dumping the garbage. They are actually putting it to actual practical use, which is identical to what we are doing with our entire process.
Yes.
So this is how we are aware of some of who are, getting rid of their garbage and how are they getting it, rid of it.
It's quite a valuable process, isn't it? It's quite a valuable commodity.
It's an important process, but it's a costly one because not enough people want to go in this direction of automatically sorting from the early childhood age.
Yeah, the plastics and glass.
That you need to separate your glass, you need to separate your plastics, you need to separate your paper and everything else. Can go into one process. I don't know if you know, but in Sweden, you pay more for putting everything together and just dumping it into your bin. If you separate it, if you separate your plastic, your glass, and your paper, you're charged less, and you're charged by the pound.
Golly.
Or actually, they're in the kilogram realm. They're in the metric system. Yes. The metric system. We have to be careful now because we have this new world metric system that we're dealing with, and it's not so new anymore. I mean, we all grew up on that when we were kids, right? So it's been here for a little while. So there are different parts of the world that face the different situations. Whether naturally or unnaturally. So a lot of these things are the situations that we are actually trying to address from a world planet situation rather than a particular country. With our true circular economy solution.
Yes, because I remember saying to you that how good would this process be in third world countries? And you said, no, it's not just for third world countries. It's for our country, right? A good,
it's
healthy country, wealthy country like Australia, for instance. So
because I'm sure that still at least 80% of your garbage is either buried or burnt. And governments have to make decisions to change this. And of course, because Australia is one of the countries like Trinidad and Tobago that has access to natural resources like oil and etc., their focus is not in this direction because they have the natural resource available to them to utilize. So all of those are the issues. And I mean, of course, politics has a lot of troubles to add to all of this, right? At the COP26, the Barbados Prime Minister, Mia Mottley, had one of the most outstanding speeches of that conference, where she really let people know the last meeting, people agreed to invest to save the small island developing states. And here we are several years after, and people have not made their contributions, and the largest countries who are the large polluters have contributed zero, This is the difficulty that the planet is facing.
Oh, wow. So what is your process? How is that going to change the lives of not just the community right now?
Our solution is
the communities going into the future. Countries.
Into the future is taking the waste and producing a new form of energy. That energy is going to, because of its unique process that we are doing, sends zero emissions into the air to start with. because we have acquired a very specialized technology that removes from the cyclones that would normally be going up in the air and expelling CO2 and all the other things, heat and etc. We are able to change and put into a process that we can produce both water and food.
Yes.
And, of course, the critical thing here is always food. And it's not only food for the average person. We are currently able to do almost 51 different types of crops within our system.
Yeah.
Okay. And in that 51 crops, we also have aligned with that for the nutritional value of the crops that we are growing, a aquaponics system that breeds 4 different types of fish and 3 different types of shrimp.
Yeah, amazing.
So, it's not only the general agriculture, but there's also this element of the fish that we are also able to breed. And even the fish waste is the nutrition that we feed the plants.
The plants, yeah.
So it's
so it really is eco.
It's a very advanced hydroponic and aquaponics system. And it's advanced to the stage that it's actually computer controlled and computer managed.
Wow.
And monitored.
Right. So there's no humans involved at all.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to
There's
say.
a tremendous amount of human for harvesting and
for the hydroponic side,
even the aquaponic side, there's harvesting of fish every certain cycle that takes place. And new fishes are replaced. And, we have that whole system going together now with some R&D that we are doing, that we have actually 3 types of shrimp, white, red, and black shrimp that we can actually grow in the freshwater system. Yeah. And this is not singular to us. There are other people who are doing the shrimp and all those things. But again, we are the only single source that it is all together in one loaf of bread. I mentioned that.
I remember you using that analogy, that it can't be bought like 2 slices or 1 slice. It has to be one entity. Correct, it is one entity.
Correct. Even to the extent where it's difficult to use one technology without the other. So the integration is critical.
Definitely.
Okay, we have to use the heat in order to produce even cleaner water than we have naturally being formed. And after it's created, we also have to keep it clean. So we have another process that keeps that water clean, which is again very, very unique and very specific to our solution.
Yeah. And so where does the computers come into this?
The computer controls, monitor, and censored for changing of day and night cycles. Oh, yeah.
And
temperatures, day and night. So you have light when it needs to be sun, and there's darkness when it needs to be night. And then the computers control the flow of nutrition that's actually going to the plants from the aquaponic side. So there are special pumping and sensors. And of course, it's got to be visually looked at as well. While you have sensors that are taking temperatures and are controlling environments, because in one greenhouse, we would have something like about 4 different temperatures, different lighting, different nutritions that have to go to every different crop.
There are 52 crops or 51 crops you were talking about.
51 crops that we have existing as it is. So, it's a very complex thing that really honestly could not be run by just
human hands,
a manpower level of stuff. And we congratulate our partners who have been in that technology
for many years.
To reach it to the stage that it is now, that it can be completely controlled and managed by that software management system.
Wow, it's just amazing. Like you just can never get away from artificial intelligence, especially nowadays. Yeah.
Yep.
But I didn't
So,
realize it was like to that degree. Like you've got white, red, and black shrimps, right? So the species,
yes,
you've got
yeah,
4 different species of fish. But that's
yes.
it. Just those,
Well, no, no, no,
oh,
no,
no.
no, no,
Okay.
no, no. We are in constant research and development as to new stuff. So
Right. Okay.
maybe by the end of this year, we may be growing some other stuff in
There
there.
you go, Adrian. There you
Okay,
go.
who
All right.
knows? Who knows? Who knows? Who
Who
knows?
knows?
But there
Okay.
is constant R&D taking place,
Mm.
even with the waste to energy process.
Yes.
There's
Yeah.
constant revolutions taking place in the whole evolution
Yeah.
of the process, because we do process also separately and apart from the regular waste, biohazard medical waste, which
Yes. Yeah.
can be converted into, again, another raw material that can be used to produce energy as well.
Energy too.
So
Yeah.
that is a whole separate operation in place on the same compound that we are utilizing the existing technologies with. So there's a lot of how to say synergies with a lot of what's going on. You can't do one without the other, right?
Yeah.
And even down to the end product. When we think about producing water, did we ever think that creating the plastic bottle would have created such a mess? Okay. And that also is part of our research and development, because one of the things that I can tell you we will be doing from on start with our process is that all the things that normally would go into a plastic bag, it may look like plastic, it may feel like plastic, but it will not be plastic.
Wow.
It will not be plastic in our case, and again, this is something new that's taking place, and we're proud to be an investor with that group of people who are developing this for a much larger market than our own. And we're happy to have invested, are going to be a larger investor into that technology, because you want things to be circular.
Definitely.
You want that plastic bag that you're getting in the supermarket to be biodegradable when you get to your home.
Yeah. But what was interesting also for me when we last had our conversation is that you actually have access to a girl who's designed this process where the actual plastic can be melted down and reused again.
Yes.
Almost as pure, like water, right?
Yes.
And
yes.
was flabbergasted. I was flabbergasted when I heard that.
Really, really fantastic people around the world that are making this contribution to change the entire planet. And all credit to, of course, all these fantastic people who have come up with these technologies. Even in the plants that we grow, there's also lots of technologies that is coming out of, agriculturist scientists who are developing, new strains of very unique plants and stuff that are, how should I say, so advanced that, you couldn't compete with them in a normal cycle. And that's why our solution is a bit proprietary and unique to everyone else's, because you can just imagine to feed, let's say 300,000 people, it's going to cost almost $100 million worth of food and stuff a year. And I'm just talking about the basic crops again. Carrots, potatoes, peas, cucumbers, lettuce. All these basic items can run at very, very tidy sum on a country's budget every year. And a small island with maybe 300,000 people, their food imports for these items run over $100 million. And in those same communities of 300,000 people, you actually have almost 1,000 tons of garbage being produced every day.
And that's including the food for the stock, right? That's including Yeah.
We're also dealing with the animal side of this, because it can't be circular unless you've included the animals. They're part of our ecosystem, our lifestyle, our need for protein to some extent, right? And all these different things that we have to attend to. And even our milk comes from the cows,
from the
right?
Cows, that's right.
Okay, of course. You can even say that we are now producing almond milk, which is supposedly even a lot healthier. And even things like nutmeg, we can grow in our greenhouse process. Wow. Strawberries, we can also grow in our process, and these are some of the specialty crops that we will be growing within our ecosystem.
Yeah, that's incredible. Because one of the questions I asked you, Adrian, is how could a process that you're speaking about, the true circular economy process, how can that be used on my little 100 square kilometer island of Niue, right, which is where I was born?
Right.
And you said all you would need is 10 acres and some cows, right? Obviously, it's going to be a bit more than that. It's just phenomenal how 10 acres, as you said, can produce $10 million worth of food in 1 year.
No,
is that right?
$100 million
dollars worth of food. My goodness, I don't even think 1 million goes through each year at the moment.
$100 million worth of food on 10 acres.
Yeah,
all scientifically grown. All high production volumes from the type of plants that are being grown and the controlled environment, which is pesticide free. Remember, you have no insects, you have nothing. Our pollination process includes, natural processes such as the bee pollination as well. So all of these things are very unique in an enclosed environment type setting. And,
but what amazes me is that it's just on such a small amount of land, 10 acres of land.
Well, of course, it's several layers of plants that are being grown. It's not in the ground. Nothing is in the ground. Absolutely nothing is in the ground.
Yeah, because you're using that hydroponics and the aquaponics system.
And the aquaponics system.
Right.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. And we're generating our own water from the process of the heat that's coming from the waste to energy cycle system. And as I said before, we are zero rated emissions. The country is actually going to be able to receive carbon credits against our entire process. And of course, everybody wants to tune in at the supposedly very high level. We are presently at 11 of the 17 SDG goals that the United Nations has set. Okay.
Wow.
So 11 out of 17 isn't bad.
Amazing.
Isn't bad, right? And of course we are focused on addressing all. So we will be going into some areas such as construction and etc. That will be more advanced. It's already on the drawing board.
Okay, we'll stop it there for part 1 prior to listening in on part 2 of this wonderful circular economy process that Adrian Douen has kindly offered to teach us more about. And I know that you've found just this episode alone, you would have learned so much. So we look forward to seeing you in part 2. Thanks, and see you in there.